Screen time is not what it used to be. The devices our kids are using and the ways in which they're using them can frustrate us, annoy us, even worry us. But with some active and mindful parenting strategies, those devices can be used in positive ways. Today I want to talk about how to do that, because this is what parenting looks like. Helmets, sunscreen, vegetables, good digital citizenship. My name is Joe Langford. I'm a therapist, a sex educator, and a dad in Seattle, Washington. And I specialize helping families navigate that intersection of adolescence, sexuality, and technology. For the record, I'm well aware that I am a kinda crunchy, sorta groovy, American, liberal, educated, West Coast, secular, cisgendered, white dude. So my values may not completely mesh with your values. And I'm going to be sharing with you some things that I've learned about kids and screens in my meandering experience working with them over the last 20 years. Though I am aware of and deal with the dark side of media use amongst teens and tweens, I also see opportunities for our kids to learn and grow into thoughtful digital citizens. First, I want to give you a little bit of the bad news. Statistically speaking, 100% of American teens have used some kind of social media. 90% of them have posted a picture or a photo of themselves online. 80% of them check their device hourly. The grown-ups do that too. 70% of them have shouted their location to people that they don't know, either accidentally or on purpose. 60% of them are not at all worried that they've done that. 50% of them have received an instant message from a stranger. 40% of them have lied about their age online. 30% of them argue with you guys daily about their screen use. 20% of them have posted a phone number online. And 10% of American kids have shared enough sensitive information online that has caused a problem for them or someone in their family. This is bad news, but it's not a signal to avoid tech or protect our kids from the internet. Rather, it's a call to start the tech talk or the talks. Much like the sex talks, it's a bunch of regular, smaller talks that ideally begin the moment we put a connected device into our kids' hands. The internet is an amazing way for us all to connect and share, and for kids to grow and learn and be exposed to things that they're not able to when they're just left to their real lives or their non-technical devices. There's good news in that too. Studies show that accessible social media helps build friendships more than it destroys them. Screens can double the chances of a kid reading every single day. There's science indicating that texting actually increases the emotional well-being of adolescents, especially ones who lean introvert or a little bit shy. Not to mention the exposure to multicultural information and experience. Social media can also help kids stay connected with family and friends. They can meet and interact with other people who share similar interests with them by joining groups or clubs or teams. They can up their creativity through the sharing of ideas, music, art. The internet can provide a really important, validating emotional support network to kids around certain issues, and it's a good opportunity for kids to show off just how awesome they are, show off some of their strengths and talents. When done properly, the internet can provide 5 essential elements of adolescent self-esteem. Control over their environment, sort of a sense of agency in the world around them. Individuation, self-expression, connection to other people, and acceptance. These are all good things. I'm not against that kind of connection. In fact, I'm a big, giant fan of the internet. And when I'm working with kids and families in my office, I conceptualize the internet as a tool, not a toy. Like a weapon, like a car. If you don't know what you're doing or you screw around too much, really bad things can happen. And kids don't always understand that. In terms of technology, as adults, our experience has been a little bit different. We probably got to a certain level of manners and social skills and etiquette, which we overlaid onto our online lives once technology landed. But our offspring are having a lot more technology shoved down their little throats than they've had the chance to develop the etiquette that goes along with it, and that is what causes the problems. An additional facet for parents is that sometimes our kids can seem a little bit more savvy about their technology, or at least the technical parts of their technology. New words, for example, can pop up, and suddenly you get that creepy feeling where you don't know if your kid is using that word wrong or if you just don't know what that word means anymore. Like if any of you can think back and remember to when the word bad started to mean good and we had to sort of explain that to our parents, or when fat started to mean cool, or eventually when bad stopped meaning good and started to become I'm sorry. these kinds of things change, and it's important for us to remember that our kids may be more savvy about their tech and their slang, but in terms of the social aspects that underlie all of that, they are not. And most of the problems that I deal with in my office with clients and families, when you boil them down to the bones, is about those manners. Complicating this, our offspring also view the internet differently, because for most of them, all of their lives, their devices have been escape or distraction, fun and games. But at some point, which I think is about 10, we need to start finding ways to remind them that their tech is a tool, not a toy. And that is a big picture mental leap that kids cannot and will not make on their own. There needs to be an on-purpose, like hands on the shoulder, look at my face conversation about them starting to use their tech in different ways. Our kids are going to be online someday. As parents, I think we need to develop a relationship with that so we can help our kids do the same, because all roads lead to the internet now. We know this. And your kid may not be in the deep end of the pool yet, but they can see it and they know where it is. And for the most part, they're really excited about jumping in there and starting to splash around. So as they get too big for their floaties and too cool for their Spider-Man and My Little Pony swimsuits, we need to make sure that they know how to swim. When kids are in my office and I'm explaining kind of the platinum rules about interacting with other people through screens, I say, be smart, don't be stupid. Those are different things. Focus on the people that you already know in real life. Don't be a jerk. Protect your privacy, and don't give a crap what people think. Give a crap what 5 people think. Be able to count them on one hand, choose those people wisely, and then always act like those 5 people are watching. But in my experience, most parents are going to interact with their kids' online lives more around things related to the expense of the devices, setting limits on time or data, or their online purchases, and typically not having enough high-quality conversation about what their kids are actually doing online. So I want to take a look today at a few different ways that we can examine our kids' online behavior and then kind of start gently pointing them in the direction of good digital citizenship. The first aspect is moving our kids from autopilot to awareness. As adult influences in our kids' lives, we can cultivate a certain level of social consciousness in our kid through media literacy. And if used consciously, Screentime can be a great conversation starter for big issues, rather than just for escapism or checking out or tuning out. Tech aspects such as like social media hashtags, online blogs, YouTube channels, even song lyrics can be excellent springboards that can sort of help us engage our young people in generative conversation about things like stereotypes, sexism, human rights, without kind of forcing the issue or torturing them, which we don't want to do. If you find an example in a movie or a television commercial or a video game about sexism, we can ask our kid, what do you think the assumptions are being made in this about the ways that males or females are being seen? Same thing with asking them thoughts about portrayal of characters of different ethnicities or sexual orientations. Those kind of conversations can be helpful and helps kids kind of learn to think about their media in a different way, through a different lens. Making efforts as the grown-ups in the house to kind of purposely stock our media libraries with movies, books, music that portray positive, and maybe even not so positive sometimes, diverse characters with regard to gender, color, motivation. They can be really interesting and challenging and even fun. An excellent example of that is the Bechdel test. So if you're not familiar with the Bechdel test, it was named after Alison Bechdel, a MacArthur Genius Award-winning cartoonist from New York, and it's a guideline that you can apply to a work of fiction, usually a book or a movie. And the Bechdel test looks for 2 things: 1, the presence of 2 female characters; 2, that have a conversation about something that's not a dude. Now, that may seem like a kind of ridiculously low bar compared to how unbelievably important it is for our young people to have access to fully formed female characters in fiction, and it's grossly harder than you might think to pass that test. In fact, generally, the fact that the 2 female characters have names is considered extra credit. So try applying that the next time that you are watching a movie or reading a book with your kid and see if it passes the Bechdel test. But joining in media with our kids in general is a fantastic way to engage those kinds of conversations. In my house, we spent a summer binge watching the Brady Bunch, which is some glorious 70s cheese, if you were at all interested in that. But my wife and I were shocked about how, despite the fact that the show was really progressive at the time, like Mike and Carol Brady were the first couple shown on American television in bed together, just like hanging out and having conversation. But despite that, like some of the dynamics in the show were crazy dated. And as a family, because of that, we had some really fun and really powerful conversations about fairness, puberty, conflict resolution, fashion, and gender dynamics. In fact, that episode with the clubhouse and the nails particularly pissed off my then 7-year-old daughter. Even if there's media that you don't want your kids to watch, like whether it's the Roblox video game or Kanye West lyrics or the Deadpool movie, if we take time to explain our thoughts and our rationale to our kids, we can even turn the absence of media into a productive values conversation for our kids and our family. The second aspect that I want to talk about today is moving from brainwashing to benefit. Tech can offer loads of opportunities for all of us to take on different roles and responsibility, not even just in our homes and our families, but in our bigger community as well. The internet is a great opportunity for kids to take on leadership roles in terms of that, like tasking kids to develop a budget related to their allowance. Next time you're on a family trip, like have your kid map out the directions and figure it out on their phone, or watch some cooking shows and make some family dinners. Kids can create a neighborhood blog or one of those how-to videos on YouTube where they can show off their expertise and actually help someone else while they're doing it. There's activities, even games that we can do with our kids together to foster a sense of ownership and accomplishment and pride in our kids. We can challenge them to think a little bit more creatively and critically as customers to the content that is constantly being marketed to them. Teaching a kid, I think, how to behave in games and online threads, comment threads in social media or articles online, encourage them to give feedback to developers or producers of apps or television. Just kind of anything we can do to get them to kind of critically consider the marketing aspect of things, like why this particular game or why this song is so popular, or what a company or that celebrity does with your dollars once you give them away to them. These kinds of thinking about their behavior empowers kids to discover and develop and discern their own set of values around the media that they're consuming. Limiting, kids' screen time and access to technology and the content that is out there makes sense when kids are smarter. But as kids adolesce, part of mature development in a digital world involves life skills that they're learning around their screens just as much as the ones they need for their real life. As parents, we don't have to be experts about every app that comes down or the next big social media platform or the next massive multiplayer online game. We just have to give them opportunities to grow and thinking about their behavior and then be there with them while they do. Talking about boundaries, talking about if-then thinking, and just being a voice of reason until the executive functions of their brain have developed enough for them to do that themselves. And the third aspect I want to talk about today is moving from consumption to creation. So terms like screen time, media, even technology have become relative terms. It's important, though difficult, to make distinctions between when kids are creating content online and when they're consuming content online. Sometimes I play Angry Birds while I'm waiting for a client to show up in my office. Sometimes I read the New York Times. There's a difference between those two things, even though both of them are technically media. In your house, does playing Scrabble or chess or something on a phone count in the same way as media, or is it really that different than being on a board game? What if kids listen to music or a podcast? Do those feel different to you? Is reading on a Kindle considered screen time in the same way that binging their favorite YouTuber is? You have to kind of figure out what these words mean to you and your family as you start to use them to make house rules and behavior expectations. Just as kids can play games and watch videos, they can also build apps, they can develop websites, they can live tweet current events. Assessing for value in what a kid is doing with the screen rather than just noticing the screen and encouraging them to be exercising some of their creativity muscles while they're doing that has a lot of merit in terms of how kids can start to look at their digital lives in a different way. And it's also important to acknowledge that sometimes there is merit in passive escapism and fun in games. And building a sandbox world with a friend, or reading an ebook, studying with friends in a Google Hangout, or producing a podcast blog can be pro-social and productive, even if they involve things like screen time and media and technology. So I hope this was a little bit helpful to you in terms of just thinking about our kids' behavior and helping give them some pathways and clues on how to develop themselves as more active digital citizens in the world. Again, my name is Joe Langford. More information can be found about me and the work that I do at my website, beheroes.net.